This is an important part for us. This is a very important part. And we call it the misapprehension of the events in Parliament on the 6th of January. I'll read first of all what Sam Jonah says, and it's on the screen. Let's read it together. He says, "We also witnessed arguably the biggest assault on our democracy since the beginning of the Fourth Republic, when on the eve of the swearing in of the president, at a time when there was no ministers, and crucially there was no Minister of Defense, armed soldiers, that is to say, officers from an institution that works by command, invaded our parliament, and up till date, no serious answers have been provided." Wow, this one is controversial. And we title it the misapprehension of the events of Parliament. Because you see, I was in Parliament that day. I was there. All of us here, all of our crew were in Parliament that day. And that's not what happened. That's really not what happened. And that's photographs of that day's Parliament events that we're showing you now. That's not what happened in Parliament that day. So the story is being told as if soldiers invaded Parliament that day and they came into the chamber, and as Sam Jonah puts it, it was an assault on our democracy. So we're going to describe to you what happened that day so that you can understand it, because that's not what happened. So on that day, 6th of January, it was the inauguration day. They had a double inauguration to do within the presence of Parliament. The inauguration of the new Parliament and the new Speaker, and the inauguration of the new President and the Vice President. Both significant events were occurring at the presence of Parliament. So Parliament had been determined to be a security area. So because a security area, my guess is that they needed reinforcements. So there were policemen there and there were soldiers there. By the time we arrived in Parliament at about 7 o'clock that evening, the soldiers were already there. And some of the police work was done by soldiers. For instance, those who searched us before we got into the media arena of that night's events were soldiers. Camouflage wearing soldiers, gun holding soldiers, armed to the teeth soldiers. They conducted a search on some of us before you get into them, because the media area was quite close to the dignitaries. And so they were interested in who comes there and what he held and all of that. So they were searching us. Now, when the soldiers were there, they were keeping guard. They were already there. So when the commotion occurred in Parliament, the soldiers, like the policemen and all of us, went in to see what was happening so that perhaps they could bring it under control. There was no problem about that. To call that an assault on our democracy because soldiers showed up and there was no minister, I think it's a gross exaggeration of what happened. There was a lot of confusion in the inner chamber over the voting. Ballot boxes were being kicked here and there, and the soldiers were already in Parliament. It's not as if somebody phoned them from Burma camp that they should come to Parliament. That matter has been very much misrepresented, and it has been represented in a very bad way. It's not good that an important person like Sam Jonah KBE, who represents a global voice, is also representing this as the state of our nation on that night. It's a total misapprehension of what happened. And to his speechwriters, please have a look at that and see whether you can expunge this from the entire presentation. Because what he says here as an assault on our democracy is not correct. I mean, do you imagine that the Ghana Armed Forces, up to where it has come to, with the Chief of Defense Staff, with an army commander, service commanders, with the brigade commanders, battalion commanders, will organize an assault on our democracy in that manner, and no soldier in that chamber touched anyone? The soldiers walked in, hoping that they could keep law and order, like the way the policemen walked in, hoping that they could keep law and order. There was absolutely no problem. There was no problem. So the account here of what happened in Parliament on the 6th of January is a total misapprehension of what happened on that event. And I don't know what the speechwriters were doing. I don't know whether they asked anybody who was there. I don't know whether they even asked the Ghana Armed Forces what happened there. And he says that there's been no public inquiry. Is it in the next one? Yeah, I think it's in the next one. Yes, he talks about that. It says there's been no public inquiry. He says this could have grave consequences and for the future of our country. The least the country deserves is a public inquiry. Public inquiry into what? There's nothing for the public inquiry to inquire about. There's nothing happening there. Soldiers have come to protect the area for the swearing in of the Speaker and the swearing in of the President and the Vice. It had been determined to be a security area. Soldiers, I believe maybe one battalion or something. You know that there's a police squadron that's a station in Parliament. Parliament has a permanent police squadron stationed there. I know the commander. If they are there, they're in Parliament. So on occasions like that, they may assess the situation and say that, look, we need reinforcement because of the numbers of people who are coming or because of the kinds of dignitaries who are coming. When they need such reinforcement, most likely the 5th Battalion of Infantry will be called to bring maybe half of a battalion there. So they arrive there, they are on duty, they are there, they are already there. If they are there and they see fire, they will deal with it. If they are there and they see commotion, they will deal with it because they are there to maintain security. So when they heard the unfortunate noises from the inner chamber of Parliament, and anyone who saw that will see that this is a security threat, and they thought that there was a security situation, they went into the chamber of Parliament to try and deal with it. What's wrong with that? There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. So really, this part of the speech, I think that the speech writers, if they have heard, they should expunge it. It's not correct. It's a total misapprehension of the event. Okay.